One of the guests joining us at that event tomorrow will be Carly Fiorina, candidate for Senate, and she joins us right now. What a coincidence. Morning, Carly.
Good morning, Rob. How are you doing?
Really good. Pleasure to have you with us here this morning.
Well, likewise. It's great to be back with you.
And we look forward to seeing you tomorrow there at the Pure Joy Bakery in Lunchpeel for the...
that ought to be fun.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your campaign as it now stands. I don't know what to make of polls, because one poll shows you tied with Tom Campbell. Another one, Survey USA, which just came out a couple of days ago, shows that you're like 23 points ahead. So it's hard to make up, hard for the polls to make up their minds here, I guess. But how do you see it? Do you think you've got a lead over the other competitors, or is it a tight race still?
Well, yes, we are pretty confident that we have a lead. The difference in the two polls that you just cited is a difference in time. And what we've seen is a steady climb in my candidacy and in my numbers, steady momentum. And there have been now a couple polls out this week that show me with a substantial lead. Having said that, I take nothing for granted, no vote for granted. And so we're, campaigning hard right up to the very end. But I think more and more Californians are concluding that I am a common-sense conservative. Those are Sarah Palin's words, not mine, but a common-sense conservative who can actually beat Barbara Boxer. And I think more and more Californians are also concluding that we need some folks from the real world to go back to Washington, D.C. and knock some sense into folks who've been there way too long.
Yeah, let's talk about the Sarah Palin endorsement, because she's bucking the trend of the Tea Party here. The Tea Party is supporting in large part Chuck DeVore here in California. And she, being the Tea Party favorite, I think, in the nation right now, as their de facto leader, has chosen to endorse you. Why did she choose to endorse you? Why did she tell you she was going to be on your side in this?
Well, I will have to disagree a little bit with the premise of your question. Chuck DeVore certainly likes to say that he is the favorite of the Tea Party, and of course Chuck DeVore is a good conservative with support. But if you look inside the public polls, what you will find is that more people who describe themselves as Tea Partiers support me than support Chuck. And, Chuck has been stuck in the polls in the low double digits for a very long time. I was just at a Tea Party last night as an example. And I think, the Tea Partiers that I've met all across this state believe the same thing that Sarah Palin believes, and that is that we must return to our core principles of limited government, personal responsibility, let's grow our economy, let's cut spending. These are the liberties, the principles that allowed me to live the American dream. I'm doing this because I'm worried my granddaughters won't have that same chance. And I think every poll says that people have lost trust in, professional politicians. 72% of the American people think Congress is incompetent, basically, to deal with the economy. And so I think people are saying, you know what, maybe someone who's actually created a job and met a payroll and managed billions of dollars and cut billions of dollars, that would be me, maybe someone like that could actually help us right now. And Sarah Palin said what I believe, which is our core conservative principles need to be applied to solving the problems of the nation.
Are you surprised that, and I know this is not the race you're running for, but were you surprised that Newt Gingrich, who is known to be a staunch conservative, is supporting Meg Whitman for the governor's race? Have you heard anything from his campaign in regards to your own? I'm sorry, from his camp in regards to your own campaign?
Yeah, well, I haven't. To be very truthful with you, I haven't been following the governor's race all that closely. I mean, obviously I follow the news, but I've been pretty much concentrated on my own. And so I can't comment on Newt's motivations. I will say this, we have really, really serious problems. We need to get the water turned back on. We need to get the border secure. We need to get our tax rates down. We need to cut federal spending. Every single one of the things that I just mentioned requires the U.S. Senate. It requires a senator other than Barbara Boxer to come down on the right side of these issues. How do we grow our economy? How do we turn the water back on? How do we secure the border? How do we cut federal spending?
Well, let's talk a little more about that securing the border issue. That's about the biggest news item right now in the U.S. is this Arizona illegal immigration law, where actually it just gives Arizona the right to enforce federal legislation already in the books. And how do you see this? Would you welcome this kind of a law to California?
Look, I think that the people of Arizona did what they needed to do to protect their citizens because the federal government has failed to do its job, which is to protect the nation, and you cannot protect the nation without securing the border. And just this morning, we're learning that there is some kind of warning about terrorists potentially coming across the Mexico-Arizona border. I think it is the crassest form of politics for President Obama and Barbara Boxer to stand up and challenge the constitutionality of this law and call on lawmakers to pass comprehensive immigration reform. This is all about making sure we don't have criminals crossing across our border. I'm so disappointed in listening to your news to hear that, yet another group in the city and county of Los Angeles is planning to boycott Arizona. The federal government needs to step up here, and Barbara Boxer ought to be demanding that they step up, and they are not.
As you're speaking with about Senator Boxer and the president there, Barack Obama, when he was campaigning, had such a commonality of purpose, as many people in America saw it, and they believed that he was going to stand for them in the things that they believed in. And now that he's become president, so many people have become disillusioned, especially those independents that really swept him into office. They feel that they've been disillusioned, that they've been lied to, that they were sold a bill of goods. And so today we see such an anger in America because the people we have trusted in and believed in elected to public office don't seem to be listening to us anymore. And I'm just wondering how, when you get to Washington, D.C., if you actually win this Senate seat, how are you going to stay in touch with the people? How are you going to know what the grassroots of your support really want you to do as their representative? How can you keep in touch in 6 years of working in Washington, D.C.?
Well, you got to come back and talk to them. It's pretty basic, something Barbara Boxer really doesn't do. Barack Obama and Barbara Boxer were at a fundraiser in San Francisco on Tuesday night at one of the swanky hotels in San Francisco. I mean, here we have all these problems, and they're raising money. Last August, when the Tea Party movement really got going, and everyone was holding town hall meetings about the health care bill, Barbara Boxer went on book tour. She refused to hold a single town hall meeting or answer a single question. The way you keep in touch is to keep in touch, to come to California and talk to the people. But I guess I would also say, I am not going to Washington to be there forever. My husband would kill me. I'm going as our founding fathers once did, and as citizen legislators did for the first 150 years of our history. Ours is intended to be a citizen government. People went to government for a period of time to make a difference, and then they went back to the real world. And that is my intention. We have to fight for every job now. We have to stop an out-of-control government that does things like raises taxes, borrows money, and can't get the water turned back on. We have to take our government back, make it listen, and make it work. And we can do that. We're Americans, but we got to start by defeating people like Barbara Boxer.
What do we do in regards to securing a good energy source, especially for California, in view of what's happened in the Gulf now? Pardon me, we see so many in the state of California, including the governor, that want to be sure there's no offshore drilling that ever occurs here. Do you agree with that? Should we be drilling offshore? Should we look for other resources of energy?
Well, I don't agree with the governor, and I don't agree with President Obama in his predictable response this morning to delay things, other decisions that had been made. And I don't agree with Barbara Boxer, who immediately called on a permanent ban on offshore drilling off the coast of California. There are two problems with that. One, we need to take advantage of every source of energy we have. Of course we need to do it in an environmentally responsible way. Of course we need to understand what happened in this devastating tragedy in the Gulf Coast. And it is a devastation. 11 people lost their lives. A whole way of life is at risk now. This is an economic and human and environmental tragedy. We need to get to the bottom of it. We need to understand what BP did wrong, and we need to understand what government regulators, who are supposed to be the watchdogs of BP, did wrong. And apparently there's plenty of blame on both sides. But we must take advantage of every energy source that we have. And Barbara Boxer, by grandstanding, which is what that was, and calling for a permanent ban on offshore drilling, not only is that short-sighted energy policy. But once again, she is also trying to take a decision which belongs in the hands of the people of California and send it back to Washington, because Barbara Boxer actually thinks she knows better than the people of California, and I think she's dead wrong.
Well, Carly, I just have one more quick question for you, and it has nothing to do with politics. I'm sure you've seen the news now that Apple Inc. has become the biggest tech company, bigger than even Microsoft. It just occurred officially yesterday. Was this a surprise to you? What do you think about this?
Well, it really isn't in the following sense. One of the things that I tried, worked very hard on, along with the people of Hewlett-Packard when I was the CEO and chair of Hewlett-Packard, was to transition so that a great deal of our business came from the consumer market. And we succeeded in that transition, and it's positioned the company well. And I bring that up because consumers now are the major purchasers of technology. Mm-hmm. It used to be that it was businesses who were the purchasers of technology, and Microsoft's strength is in the business market. Mm-hmm. But now consumers are buying technology, and as we know from our own lives, there isn't much difference between our personal life and our professional life. We all carry around a device or two or three that we use in our personal and our professional life.
That's right.
So it's individuals who are driving the market now, and that's why Apple is doing so well, and of course they have fantastic technology.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought of that. That's why I asked you, former CEO of a high-tech company. Do you by chance have an iPad yet?
I don't, and I must tell you the truth. My husband is a iPod fanatic, and I am a BlackBerry fanatic.
Is that right?
We sort of have a technology war that goes on in our family.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, I'm an iPod man myself, so give your husband props for me.
Well, and our kids and grandkids are iPod fanatics, so I think I'm kind of falling behind in the family race here.
Hey, Carly, it's real good to talk to you this morning. We'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow afternoon, okay?
Great to see you. Ron, thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks very much. Carly Fiorina, candidate for Senate for the Republicans. We're just a couple of weeks away from the primary now.